Last, we're going to conclude with multiple intelligences. But these are these are the more prevalent and traditional multiple intelligences. You have musical, bodily kinesthetic, interpersonal, verbal linguistic, logical mathematical, naturalistic, intrapersonal, it's hard to read upside down, visual spatial. So these are just different ways that we learn, different things that we're more prone towards in learning. So first you have verbal linguistic. We're starting there. And then jumping around because I'm right-brained. Those who demonstrate strength in language arts, speaking, writing, reading, listening. These students have always been successful in traditional classrooms. This is a more tendency for people who kind of excel or are more prone towards a verbal linguistic intelligence. So a little exercise for this. And you guys are going to have a minute to form as many words as you can out of these letters. The bolded letters. So I'll give you guys 1 minute. Ready, set, go.
Alright. Ready and done.
I lost it.
Alright.
I didn't do it.
What's word count?
I got 8.
8 words?
6.
6, 5,
I have 8.
8,
14, but I think one's not a word.
14. So we'll give you 13, so still the highest. So
I
this
love it.
thing
Do you like that?
was really challenging for me.
Oh.
And these exercises are they kind of hit that intelligence, but it doesn't mean if you're not good at this exercise that that's not an intelligence that you function at. Because I had a hard time with this, but language arts is one of my favorite things. I really enjoy language arts. So
Oh, I missed one.
these are just exercises. Don't take it too personally. Don't have an identity crisis about where your intelligence lies.
Too late.
So logical, mathematical, a little calculator. This is those who display aptitude for numbers and problem solving. These people also typically do well in traditional classrooms. This is definitely not me. I don't know about you guys.
So I got both.
Mathematical, logical. Math scares me. A little exercise for this one. When asked how old she was, Susie replied, "In 2 years, I'll be twice as old as I was 5 years ago." The answer is 12.
Yeah, of course.
In 12, she'll be
So 10.
14.
So she's
In 2 years, she's old. She's 12 years old right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because in 2 years she'll be 14,
Right.
which is twice
5 years ago, how
as
old?
old.
Yeah,
as
but if
7.
she was
So she's
8,
14.
if she was
I
8
thought
years
that
old,
was-
then in
She'd
2
be-
years she'd be 10, which is twice as old as she was 5 years ago. when
5
she was
years
5.
ago, she would be 3.
Oh, 3. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm.
That makes sense.
Oh.
Yeah.
So this was a super difficult one. All right. So visual, spatial, those who learn best visually and organize things spatially. They like their space to be organized. I was not this way in high school. I think I'm more this way now than I was in high school. In high school, I was that guy who messed with the people who were that way. Not
Now
the
we can
kindest
mess with
thing.
you.
Yeah. They like to see what you are talking about in order to understand. They want to see what you're talking about. For this, got a little exercise. I'm going to give you guys.
Another idea
Oh,
with
go
this is, they don't get lost. Like, they can go somewhere once and they will find that place again.
Mhm.
So they're really good with
Yeah.
maps and that kind of thing.
All right. So for this exercise, I'm going to give you guys 15 seconds to draw whatever word it is I mentioned. Might be a verb, might be a noun. You'll get 15 seconds, and after 15 seconds, you have to stop. So with 15 seconds in mind, knowing the time, you have that much time to draw a picture to describe this word. Alright?
Does it have to be
Picture
one color?
describing the word.
Like 50
That I say.
seconds.
You have 15 seconds. If you can make it multicolored, that'd be really impressive, but you only get 15 seconds, so it's gotta be a fast picture. So the first word is swimming.
I'm done.
Done. Alright.
Is that 15
Most
seconds?
people draw someone in the water swimming. Nice, nice. I think Steve was done in like 3 seconds for that one.
Yeah, I'm done a long time ago.
It's not very artistic.
Alright, so for this one, you guys look at 7 seconds.
Oh, no.
Alright? And draw a bed. Done. It's interesting comparing people who will just, because some of us tend to just draw the basic and then stop, while some of you tended to use the whole 7 seconds if you had more time. Alright,
Mine looks like I
this
have.
next one, you guys have 5 seconds. And the word is flying. Time.
Oh.
I want to see what people did for this one.
Oh.
Airplane, bird, 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 angel. Flying, I thought might be an interesting one because there's a lot of places you can go with it. Okay, for this next one,
No, don't
you guys
touch it.
get 2 seconds. Alright? The word is duck. Time.
Oh, come on, it looks like a musical.
I need a track.
So we've got some kind of duck,
I had nothing.
nothing, got a duck. Wow, that's pretty good for 2
That's the water
seconds.
splashing
Wow.
in his eye.
That,
I would have done the
that's
flips.
pretty, so, I think the area kind of gets drawn between the people who are more visually spatial when you get down to 2 seconds and you have to draw something. These little exercises do not mean that you aren't this thing. I'm definitely visual spatial, at least a bit. These are just different ways people learn, different ways they retain things, different areas of intelligence, and things you want to try to bring into the classroom. There's a large variety of them. So next, musical and rhythmic. Those who learn well through songs, patterns, rhythms, instruments, and musical expression. Myself, I'm not very auditory necessarily, but I am pretty musical. Music is something that helps me retain things, which is kind of an interesting thing. And this is something that I really thought was interesting how Mark brought that into his SBS class by having them sing hymns in the class. That was something that was really impressed, because I think this could be a difficult thing to draw into an SBS lecture, unless you can find a song or something that can go along with what you're teaching through the book. And with a lot, depending on what book of the Bible it is, it's not too difficult sometimes to find songs that really dive into that text. And in fact, during my SBS, while I was charting, I could think of songs and I would tie them into what I was charting for that chapter of the Samuels even, or different letters that Paul wrote. So for this, I'm going to play some songs, which is probably the first 3 seconds. See if you see who the first person to name it'll be.
Oh.
Well, we'll see who more naturally retains the knowledge just by kind of hearing the opening to the songs. So, got 4 of
So
them.
we're trying to guess the.
You're trying to guess the name of the song, if you can get the artist too.
This is a fun activity.
Just as long to help me live.
You don't know the name of the
Yeah, I don't know
song?
the name, but I know it.
Don't stop
Midnight
believing
Train?
your dreams.
Don't
Don't stop believing
Leave
my
it
Oh
to
wait,
you.
oh, we were supposed to say it out loud?
Yeah.
Oh, I was writing.
Oh, you're writing it down? Okay.
So-
Next one.
And it's by Glee.
Yeah,
and
say it
Journey.
out loud.
No, it's by Journey.
I know,
Please
but
don't.
then Glee 2 Journey.
Alright, second song.
Oh.
Oh,
Jason Mraz, though. Yeah,
you
Jason
got
Mraz.
me and you bet I felt it. melting. I tried to beat you, but you're so hot that
I've
I'm
heard it, but I don't know
melting.
the
I'm
name.
Yours by Jason Mraz.
Of course you didn't know it. I suck at song names.
Alright, this one should be interesting.
Me too. I've never heard this song before.
Michael Jackson.
Wanna make a change.
It is.
What's in my
It is Michael
Come
Jackson.
on, people, it's Michael Jackson here.
Yeah, we get that.
Never lost
Gonna
it.
feel real good. Gonna make a difference. Gonna
Nobody
make
knows the song name?
it
Oh.
right.
Can you give me your first set?
Turn up the
I don't know.
corner. Broken bottle time. I'm at the place. Take a look at yourself and make a change.
Make a change.
Man in the Mirror,
Yeah,
Michael Jackson.
Yeah,
I suck at song names.
I'm not.
But I know who they
I
are.
didn't know that
Alright,
one
here,
at all.
here's another one.
Sounds like a worship song from Chris Tomlin or something.
Howie loves us.
Which version?
Oh,
It's
it's.
not saying
The Crown.
Is it Chris Tomlin?
Kim Walker's my guess.
Kim
Oh,
Walker. It's interesting how fast we can get that one without it even getting to any lyrics.
I didn't. Awesome.
So that's just a little exercise. Musical, rhythmic.
You
Now,
liked
obviously-
that one.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Obviously, we have different genres that we like more than others. So some of those people you may never actually want to listen to, but those are just some popular songs that
Maybe
I.
some Lindsay Sterling
Never
or
wanted
some
to
League
have
Willie.
Yeah, the last one I hoped people would get. So bodily kinesthetic, these people learn best through activity, movements, and hands-on tasks. This is a really not really common, but this is something that we try to bring into classrooms, I think, a lot. I think this is one of the first things we think of when we're trying to draw an illustration that isn't visual or auditory or something like that, as opposed to this intelligence, I think, is one that we really try to bring in, but sometimes it's difficult. But these are people that they really learn through activity, as we've talked about a lot already. All right, so for this, I've got a bunch of different Bible characters in my hand here.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
I hate acting. Sorry.
So I'm gonna give you guys 15 seconds to act out the character that you get.
Oh, great.
That's just a kinesthetic exercise.
I think
So
it's
it's not
perfect
necessarily saying that this is the intelligence that you're more prone to, although your ability to recognize things by the motions
Would mean
could show that this is an intelligence that you
so then I'd fail.
that you retain things by. Next, interpersonal. Those who are noticeably people-oriented and outgoing and do their learning cooperatively in groups or with a partner. The outgoing factor, I almost want to exclude because that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the way you learn. Just because you're outgoing doesn't necessarily mean that groups are a way that you really function and thrive in learning. But this is why we do group activities, this is why we do discussions. I think often this is one that's almost a default in classroom settings a lot of times, unless somebody's just lecturing. I think the next one kind of tends to get more neglected. But for this, ask the person next to you what unusual thing you've done that most people would not guess about you. And make it something that none of us would probably know or even suspect. Yeah, something you've done that people wouldn't have guessed. Maybe you went skydiving or hit a cockroach. I have one that would be very unexpected, probably for all of you, but let's go ahead and discuss that. Now, you share what the other person told you by themselves. So this will also be a little test of your ability to listen, as it's
That's what I told you.
interpersonal.
That's what we can
Yeah.
judge our successor.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah,
can
there you
say,
go.
most of you probably know this, but the other person.
This is
Interpersonal, really common that people will engage this intelligence during a classroom setting. We've been doing it pretty much the whole time. Next, intrapersonal. Those who are especially in touch with their own feelings, values, and ideas, they may tend to be more reserved. This, I think, is sometimes neglected in a classroom setting. Granted, when people are lecturing, intrapersonal people, although they kind of have time for themselves, they're still taking notes and engaging, but actually just having time to sit and think about something to themselves, I don't think that's really often done in classroom settings. If the teacher isn't talking, then he's having them discuss with one another. And I think sometimes intrapersonal people need a little bit of time to gather their thoughts before a discussion. So sometimes if you're teaching a classroom and you want to have a discussion, maybe say, okay, for the next minute and a half, I want you guys to think about this. And then just give that time, and then after that time is over, say, okay, now discuss it with the person next to you.
That sounds so nice.
And that could be a way that you could really help people who kind of function in this intelligence. And I strongly encourage you to just say the first part instead of saying, think about it to yourself and then talk to the person next to you. Because if you give both pieces of instruction right away, then the person who's more interpersonal will probably think about it for 3 seconds and then start talking to the person next to them. Or the person next to them might want that whole minute and a half to really process. So just giving kind of one step at a time will help them actually get the most out of that. So for this, Anna had us and Titus do something that I really liked. Think of an answer to this question. I feel most alive when, and then finish it with something that makes you feel alive in your life. So just take a few minutes to think about that. What in your life makes you feel most alive? I feel most alive when, just one sentence. It can be a run-on sentence, but it should just be one sentence.
I can pull a poll.
So take a few minutes to think about that. My answer would be something like when I'm hiking in the mountains, or some people put, I feel most alive when I'm journaling during a worship time, or I feel most alive when I'm hanging out with friends, or just something that really makes you feel alive, something that you really enjoy. But beyond enjoyment, kind of brings life to you in a sense. So last, and this one maybe Anna could expand on more, naturalistic. This one I actually hadn't really heard of until I was looking into it. But it's naturalistic people are drawn to classifying things in nature and relating, learning to seeing how things work in nature. Kind of. So I thought it was really interesting, Ainsley, when you said how when you had class outside, how you paid attention really well. And I thought that was really interesting. It wasn't something that I'd ever come across before, so I thought that was
So
interesting.
yeah, it's kind of Howard Gardner and this group of people that came up with all these different ways of learning. They decided that at first they were putting the people who were mathological and maybe verbal with some of the other things to be naturalistic, and then they were like, I think it's actually separate. And a naturalist is somebody who loves doing stuff outdoors, but they can sort, like they can identify trees, they identify different plants, animals, so it's everything to do with life science, actually, outside, biology type stuff.
That's really interesting.
No.
That seemed very specific to be a multiple intelligence category, but I can totally see how that really ties in. And you can even do that in a classroom setting, where you can take the class outside, do a little exodus jog, and that reaches, who knows how many different things that can help with. But I thought this one was really interesting.
People who are naturalists, they know the plants. Like I know, this is where I probably am pretty high on this, because I know like the structure of plants and like, pines look like this, fir trees look like this, pine needles go like this, and fir needles go like this. Like there's just all these different things that I have picked up,
All these little
and
details.
they're interesting to me. And so, if I go hiking on the trail, I'm like, oh, that's that flower, and that's that flower, and that's that flower. So,
Neat.
yeah.
That's really interesting. Yeah. So So that would be a really interesting thing to try and tie into a classroom, or just knowing that people think that way. How can I relate to that person with what I'm teaching in a way that really intrigues them? Yeah. So overall, these are just kind of the different multiple intelligences. And there are other things as well that people can be drawn to or prone to. I'm sure each of us in this room probably could say there's 2 things that we're probably highest in, maybe 3, maybe a couple more than that. I think we all function in multiple of these, but there are some that we're more drawn towards, that intrigue us more, and that almost can make us feel more alive and engaged when we're doing those. And so the important thing for us as teachers is to be aware of these different learning styles, these different intelligences, and try to relate to our audience through these different lenses. You can almost picture these as different lenses that people are looking through when you're teaching. They're going to be more prone to thinking in a different way. And so you want to try to at least function in as many of those lenses as you can within a teaching. That way you can draw people's attention, you can really get them intrigued, they can learn and relate to it in a way that they understand. And if you're going from left to right side of the brain, it can help them remember it better and keep them better focused as you're doing it. But when it comes down to it, we just want to be the best teachers we can be. And so that just comes down to really trying to see these different learning styles, not as much as burdens for our teachings, but tools to make us more successful teachers. And I think those are 2 different mindsets we can have towards it. Either a mindset of, oh my goodness, these different intelligences, these different learning styles, what a burden for me to have to take this time to think through my lecture in a way that can relate to different people. It'd be so much easier if I could just give them a spiel and be done with class. We can either see them that way as a burden, and if we do that, I'm sure it'll show in the way we teach. Or we can see them as an opportunity to really help people learn, to really engage with people. Because it's our job to teach them. It's our job when we stand up here to really engage them and help them learn the way that they understand. Because nobody's stupid. Fish just don't climb trees, as Albert Einstein would probably say. So yeah, I hope this was helpful. And I really challenge you guys in your teachings to really think of ways that you can engage people in these different ways. Because being Christ followers, if we want to love people well, we want to teach them in a way that they can understand. And it makes us better teachers, but in the long run, it really benefits them because they really grow. And having the heart of a teacher, we want to do whatever it takes to see growth in their lives. Because us standing before people teaching is not about us in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't really have much to do with us at all. It has to do with them and their ability to learn. And so we want to do all we can to help them do that.
Howard Gardner and these guys who came up with the multiple intelligences, they said the question is always, is Johnny smart? And they changed the question to, how is Johnny smart? So it's not that are they smart, it's how they smart, because everybody has a different way of relating. So.
And what a difference we can make in people's lives when our statement of their value is that they are smart and they're created in the image of God, and they are smart in a certain way, and we just need to tap into what that is. I don't know if it was you who said it or a different teacher we have for TIES, but somebody mentioned how if you present a problem or a scenario or something to a whole class, nobody will have the exact same answer. Because our brains all think differently. No matter how similar our learning styles are, the way we function, we'll all have different answers because everyone sees things differently. So everyone's opinion has input and value. Yeah. So God, I just thank you so much, God, that you have chosen us and given us a platform to teach. It is an honor and something that we shouldn't take lightly, God. And I pray that you would help us to desire to be better teachers, to be better communicators, to love our audiences better by trying to meet their needs, by trying to relate to them as you would. Because they're all created in your image, God, and everybody's smart. Fish just don't climb trees. And we love you, Lord. Pray you bless the rest of our day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.